Marshall Newhouse, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Good morning.
Good to have you. So appreciate you taking the time. This is, in being in Baylor country, people are very freaked out right now. And they are, and you are not only are you, 10 plus years in the NFL. Obviously, Lake Highlands High School to TCU, like your experience in Texas and with elite football speaks for itself. So you know the game better than anyone. When you see that Baylor team on Saturday, I know it was rainy, but took them a while to get the car out of the garage again, and that's been the MO for this team this year. When you look at them, did you feel like, man, this team doesn't have the fire? Even when you called the game last year, like slow starts have been a problem for this team. Have you noticed that?
I wouldn't say that at all. No, not at all. I think, listen, when they're at their best, they are a explosive but balanced attack. Sawyer Robinson gets his credit for having such a live arm and production in the passing game. But they're also at their best when Bryson Washington's getting touches and he's falling forward. They got Caden Knight involved and Michael Turner involved. And TCU made a concerted effort to clog up the middle early, make Sawyer Robinson a drop back passer, and his favorite target in Trigg a non-factor as best they could. So I don't think that had as much to do with Baylor not having any fire as just another team having a good game plan. Now, maybe you could say, did they have a counterpunch prepared? Maybe not so much, but yeah, the rain was on both teams. Those lightning delays stunk for both teams.
It stunk for you too.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is kind of my first year full time in the broadcast booth, and just the delays. I feel for our producers and all that stuff, having to reach back to the networks and figure out time slots, all that, whatever. But
Yeah.
Listen, this was an evenly matched game coming in. I mean, this was really a toss-up. Two really experienced teams, explosive teams. And, yeah, Baylor didn't get off to as good of a start as they're accustomed to. But you saw at the end that they rallied, and it feels like a lot of times they've had to turn the jets on in the second half, coming out of halftime in the fourth quarter, make these rallies when they have the talent to maintain, gain a lead and maintain a lead.
All right, one more question on Baylor, maybe 1.5, and then I want to get into TCU and some other football stuff. Some people would say that the slow starts, though, are because, like, these guys aren't coached up, right? They're having to come back all the time. Did you notice any execution or anything there that maybe could have been cleaned up early that later on when they were playing fast and loose went better for them?
It's funny because we say the same thing about TCU. TCU's had
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they scored 0 points in the last 4 first quarters, and then they come on in the second quarter. But I don't know what it is. 11 a.m. is a tough slot to play in. That could be part of it this week. I don't know as much on the depth of Baylor's coaching staff and how they are directly kind of impacting these guys. But listen, sometimes, I talk about Kendall Briles, but just generally what was Jake Spavital and offense coordinators, the first 1 to 2 drives on offense are usually scripted to a certain degree. If things don't go your way, then you kind of you throw that out the window and you start reacting to the down distance of the situation. But those first couple of drives should be scripted. And I just think both teams have had trouble executing on opening scripted drives, which are supposed to be your best plays. Those are the ones that you're like, we schemed it up. We're never going to get this matchup. Most of the time, you're telling the quarterback, hey, if it's not here, you go here. It's a 1-2 read. You're telling the running back, hey, get east and west, stick your foot in the ground, get north-south. Like, we usually have a good idea of what's going to happen in those first 2 drives. And both teams just struggle putting the puzzle piece together that at least gets you kind of even if it's a methodical drive, a 7, 8, 9, 10 play drive early on in the game. And so you see them bringing out the punter way earlier than you'd like to. And I don't think that's a unique problem to Baylor, but it definitely feels like there's a little bit of a mismatch of execution there early in the games.
Dude, me and you we're lucky enough. We'll be at West Virginia calling the game next week. You're going to be doing it for TCU. I'm doing it for ESPN Plus. But I was getting ready for that game. West Virginia, they're struggling right now. It's just a tough time. Coach Rod even said this. I hope this is bottom. But their punter's he's the best player on their team by far. I mean, he punts for 61 yards a clip. It's interesting, right? Like that guy. We're going to be talking about him on Saturday. We talk about punters. One last thing on this. When you're on a team and people are talking about getting rid of the coach. And it seems like now in college football, fans are more hyperbolic than ever. And I think that's wrong. And I think it's a bummer. But as a player, you've been through the battles in the locker room and on the field. How do you guys respond to that? And if you think it's different today, how they would respond to it as opposed to when you were in school, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been hearing, people have doubts about David Aranda for a few years. I think a lot of it's unwarranted. They have had slow, whelming performances. I understand that, but man, we are too quick on the trigger in college football. When you talk about now with the portal, you've got guys who haven't even assimilated to the culture who you're expecting to show up and execute in month 4, 5, and 6 of being in the program, and it's an entirely different day and age. And I get that we pay these coaches well and we expect a lot out of them, but man, the fire under them gets way too warm way too soon, in my opinion. I think establishing an identity and a culture is so important, and that takes time sometimes, and fans don't have the time. I mean, I understand if they're contributing to the school's collective, it's like this expectation of an ROI now because it's become so business-like, and that's unfortunate to the development of a coach, his coaching staff. I mean, trying to bring maybe younger, unproven coaches along, giving them opportunities to implement what they're trying to do, whether it's rising the level of toughness in your program or establishing, hey, we want to be a run-first team. We want to be a team that's built from the trenches out, stuff like that. It just takes time, and you get strength conditioning involved, and it's just unfortunate that the way we've gone. But I think what you can, hang your hand on a little bit is if the players feel like their coach, not even a player's coach, but this coach that they have a vision for where they're going, and they're feeling those effects in the locker room and practices and meetings, like the process is there, the players will respond and I think play for that coach. Because players, listen, I didn't get Twitter till 2010. I didn't have to deal with that in college. I feel for these kids now, but they're online, unfortunately, maybe too much. They hear what's going on. So I expect there to be a little bit of a reaction, hopefully a positive one, to a coaching staff that has made their vision clear, and you see the fruits of the labor, even if fans don't always see it right away. And so for Baylor, listen, they're right in the thick of things. I think we talked about on air with my co-host Brian Estridge. I think a 2-loss team in the Big 12 makes the Big 12 championship. They might be out of that running, but you just never know. And so you definitely want to see them respond to last week. Listen, they were close there with Arizona State. I mean, they're right there in this Big 12. It's so packed, so much parity. They've got as much talent as anyone. They've got a QB, which a lot of teams don't have. And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond to this adversity for their coach, and that'll tell you a lot about where the program is heading.
Marshall, I love that point you made about, you kind of find out about a team and how they respond to times like this. So again, time will tell. That's a really good point that only a player could make. What's the biggest growth for TCU? I mean, look, now we're talking, that was a make or break game for either team, as far as when we talk about getting to Arlington, right? Close to your neck of the woods where you grew up. What's the biggest area of growth for TCU been over these last few weeks?
Man, I tell you what, and as objective as I can be, it feels like they are so quick to take their foot off of the gas for some reason. I look, a lot of teams feel like they can say this. I can be honest, as a guy who played, even though this is my alma mater, as a guy who's watched the majority of the Big 12, I do tune in Big 12 radio on the weekends previewing the conference. I'm paying attention to TCU has every argument to say they should be 6-0 right now. The Arizona State loss, they're up by 17 points in Arizona State and just started doing uncharacteristically undisciplined things. And that has been their bugaboo this season. It's crazy because people, they zoom in on Sonny on the broadcast. He's beat red, and we talked to him after the game, and he's just kind of like bewildered. He's like, I don't know where it's coming from. And it feels like they have this propensity to do the wrong thing at the wrong time that really just lets a team stay in the game or gets them back in the game. And Arizona State was absolutely that. Listen, they have Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, who were studs. Jordan Tyson's going to be the first wide receiver off the board if he keeps playing like this. So they weren't without talent, but TCU was controlling the majority of that game. And then they just kind of let it slip away, just ticky-tack, boneheaded errors. And we can all complain about the referees, but I was always taught, don't let them be a factor. Don't let them get involved in the game. TCU had enough to believe in Arizona State they could do that. Kansas State, TCU has a horrible record against Kansas State, especially in Manhattan. That game was pretty even. K-State had kind of reverted back to their old style where they controlled the clock. Avery Johnson wasn't taking a ton of shots. He's had his struggles this year, so I felt like they were trying to just condense the game and squeeze the air out of the ball a little bit. And TCU had two just kind of boneheaded, uncharacteristic. At this point, can you call them uncharacteristic if they keep happening? But two errors in a swing pass that Josh Hoover throws. It's a lateral. It's a fumble. They don't even have to get on their offense on the field to earn the points. They give them 7 points. Then he throws a pick six, 7 points. If you take away those two turnovers, it's an even matchup, and you throw it up. You flip a coin at the end of the game and see who can execute. And so those are two games that TCU was really just kind of allowed to get away from them, but really mostly by their own doing. And even, if you're Baylor fans listening, any team in the Big 12 listening, I played for Bill Belichick in 2019, and the thing that I took away from that tenure, that time, was just the emphasis on situational awareness and not beating yourself. And he has this quote, I don't even know if it's attributed to him anymore, but before you can win, you have to prevent yourself from losing. And what that means, it sounds coach speaky, I get it, but what that means is like the unforced errors are what gets you beat more often than not. If you can have a team that it's not even making heroic plays. You want playmakers, you need playmakers, but not making the dumb mistakes, the bad mistakes. Football is too even and too emotional of a game. If you just don't give stuff away, and more times than not, you will be in a position to win. And we see that week in and week out in the Big 12. Texas Tech this past week made some very uncharacteristic errors. I mean, it can happen. And that is really the difference between winning and losing, especially over the course of a season, especially in a conference as closely tied as the Big 12 is.
Marshall, man, this is great stuff. I want to ask about Josh Hoover. You mentioned you blocked for the best of all time, Tom Brady, right? Playing for the Patriots. When you see Josh Hoover, what traits does he have that you say, as someone who has seen some of the best of all time, if not the best, oh, wow, this separates Josh from everyone else? What jumps out at you?
Listen, it's this. It's, good or bad, he's ice. He's ice. Like, he's made some plays this season, even last season, where you're like, ooh, man, what was the thought process there? It wasn't his best. And then he comes right back and just delivers a dime somewhere and leads the team down. And so the mentality part, I think, is one of his biggest traits. This offense is high-powered, has a lot of weapons, but it goes as he goes. If he's accurate, if he's making good decisions, which towards the end of this Baylor game, he was not making good decisions. He pulled a ball on a zone read that wasn't a zone read, and he fumbles, gets Baylor back in the game. But when he's making good decisions, he's got as good a placement as anybody in the country. He's got enough arm talent to make all the throws. And the players will go to fight for him. And that's such a huge intangible thing, but they will go to fight for him. Not the quickest guy, doesn't even have the most powerful arm, but he gets the ball there, can make all the throws. But as a leader, he is even-keeled, and the players love playing for him, and they'll go to battle for him. And I think that has been one of his calling cards since he kind of emerged post-Max Duggan. TCU was trying to figure out what was going on. And all you heard from camp was like, this Josh Hoover kid's the real deal. And, Chandler Morris ends up transferring, and you see like TCU doesn't go after some QBs in the portal because they're like, we got our guy. And that's only been proven as time has gone on. And I expect him to continue to get better.
What position group has impressed you the most from TCU recently here?
I would say the defensive front, so kind of the front seven. But last year they had a new defensive coordinator, Andy Avalos, came from Boise State. He runs a multiple defense, a very high pressure defense, likes a lot of stunts, a lot of simulated pressure where guys are up in line of scrimmage, they drop and coverage, all that stuff. And last year they struggled. You could see everyone was just like slow to communicate. And even this year, when they've had struggles, the communication is on point. But when they're all dialed in, and that happens from top down, from the safeties down, this front seven has been really, really solid. And, TCU hasn't been necessarily a stout defense, but they have been an opportunistic and a really friction defense. They make you earn a lot of what you get. We saw that, on Saturday. Baylor really was trying to make a concerted effort to run. TCU was, for the most part, focused on not letting that happen. Now Baylor popped a few, and I think they could have had even more. But this front seven, Marcus Deal up front's a dog. He's a very highly recruited defensive tackle, and he's playing like it. And they have a couple of transfers at the outside linebacker position that they're asked to both rush the passer, set the edge, but you'll see them walking around. Devin Deal is one. And so they have these guys who I think have all taken a step up as a group, and they really give Andy Avalos a lot of leeway to call what he wants to call. Because if you can slow teams down on first and second down, he really gets in his bag on third down, and he makes it really difficult for college quarterbacks. These are not easy reads that he gives you, especially knowing, hey, I got to throw third and long. I got to put the ball in the money. I have to make the right pre-snap and post-snap read. And he's really, when he's given that opportunity, he can dial up more. And this defensive front has allowed him to do that. They have a lot of sacks, but they don't have necessarily a stud pass rusher. But as a collective unit, they play really well together when they play the run early and then they play the pass, as a benefit of playing the run solidly early.
No, that's great. And that's a tip of the cap to Andy Avalos, like you said. I mean, when you can say we've got a front and you named a couple guys, obviously you know them all, but it's more the unit, right, and the attack than anything. That's special. When you saw, and maybe you had a chance to watch, but I know maybe you didn't. I don't know if you were in a delay or whatever, but when you saw Texas Tech had lost, were you surprised or were you like, hey, this is the chaos of college football?
We were paying attention to some of the clips. We had a monitor in the booth, and I was not surprised just for the simple fact that I thought, all the news about them has been about money this year and their roster construction, and less about the context in which they play in the Big 12 and the conference. People just assume, they're far and away the best. And to their credit, they had played like it. They put a bunch of numbers on people, but I just never saw them as such a outsized leader in this conference, especially. So I even called this kind of behind the scenes. I was like, all right, Arizona State, Sam Levitt gets dinged up. And when they chose to not start him against Utah and they had that blowout, I didn't see that as necessarily just like an indication of where Arizona State was. I saw that as Kenny Dillingham is playing a little bit of chess here. He understands how important the Tech game is just from a big opponent, but for Arizona State, still trying to make the Big 12 championship. And so I think he wanted all the bullets in his gun for Tech. And you saw that game that they kind of did the thing where hey, we're going to limit big plays. We're going to stretch the game out. We're going to let Sam Levitt kind of improvise and extend plays. We're going to play as stout defense as we can and make them earn everything. And then at the end of the day, we're going to trust our guys to go make a play. Or trust Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson to go make a play. And boy, did they. So I was not surprised. I paid attention to the Big 12. I was not surprised. I still think Tech is the best team. They are the deepest. Their trenches are really stout, really good on both sides of the ball. I still expect to see them in the championship, but this game was not as much of a surprise for me.
What's it like when your team is down by a score and Tom Brady's the dude crouching down in the huddle, looking you in the eyes, making the play call and telling you we're going to do this?
I mean, listen, you're calm, not for your own performance because you're like, I don't want to screw this up. I don't let the team down. But you're calm because he puts in more time and preparation than anybody I've ever seen. So you're like, there's nothing that he hasn't seen, that he hasn't visualized, that he hasn't prepared for. And you're like, all right, getting that out of your quarterback. There's no situation that feels too far gone. And we had a few of those, and I played with other quarterbacks who I felt the same way about. And just, it's like it's a mixture of just supreme confidence, but preparation and just like, delusional confidence. Like,
yeah,
we're going to win. I prepared for this. We're going to make this happen. And
who was the second most behind Tom? Second most confident and second most like guy you trusted?
Well, so I was drafted to Green Bay and played for Aaron Rodgers. We won Super Bowl in 2010, and we set the NFL scoring record in 2011. And just like being a part of those games, playing left tackle for him, they're just hovering on another level of just like what they call it, like a flow state. He was just always in the flow state, and even if we were down late in the game, just he could make every throw like. Just I call it arm arrogance, just the arm and mental arrogance of like, I can fit it in here. I can get it to Jordan Nelson here. I can scramble and extend it, like just an otherworldly level of belief in themselves. And then that it flows down to us. We're just like, all right, he believes it. I'm going to do my job, and we're going to go get this thing done.
When you're watching Bill Belichick and all this stuff now, do you feel like you're checking in on something in an alternate universe, or do you feel like, you know what, this is the process, and sometimes it's super ugly, and being that he's so high profile, there's just so much stuff there paying attention that, you know, his process is getting drawn out into the public, right? And it's ugly getting that stuff started sometimes.
Yeah, I just feel like he didn't fully want to be here. I believe his priority was to get back in the NFL. The interviews he had and the communication he had all broke down for a variety of reasons. And this was, you know, if you start hearing about, listen, I hate gossiping. But you start hearing about how things are formed, and there was back channeling within the North Carolina, you know, booster base, you can call it, or whatever, to get this deal done. And then the optics of it right away, where, you know, he has a buyout later in the first year of the contract that reduces it from $10 million to $1 million, and you're just like, what? Why is this happen? Why would this felt so forced, and why this need to happen? I spoke positively about it, just from like, if he can just be a ball coach and give these guys a percentage of his wisdom, they'll be a better football team. But what we've discovered is maybe that's still the truth, but college football is an entirely different business and setup than what he was accustomed to. He hired Mike Lombardi to help with the front office stuff, which is kind of a new thing in college football, just with NIL and the management of, you know, contracts and salaries and players and portal. It just feels like a mismatch of his desires, the needs of college football versus pro football, and then just kind of the PR circus around Jordan Hudson, who is handling a lot of his front-facing stuff. And we always say winning, you know, covers up so much, but they're doing the opposite of winning. It's like they're worse off than they were under Mac Brown, and people just look like, what did we move on from Mac Brown for this? And so it's unfortunate, because I think he's the greatest coach of all time. I enjoy playing for him. It's not for the weak-hearted. It's not for the weak-minded, but you had a chance to win, and I appreciated that about him. He's a football guy through and through. I hate that this is going to hopefully – well, we'll see how much it does, but I hate that this might tar some of his legacy towards the end of his career. So I don't know how either side gets out of this. I don't know if it's going to be a buyout soon, or if he's going to, you know, chunk the deuce and walk away. I'm not sure, but it's not going well. And you listen, he stays on, and they end up building a winner. TCU's got to play him in Ireland next year. So we have no idea what we're going to be getting. So maybe he stays on and he just rebounds and goes up from here, but it's not looking good. I'll be honest with you.
Marshall Newhouse, you used to block for superstar quarterbacks so they could throw dimes. You are dropping the dimes today, man. College football analyst, Big 12, TCU. Marshall, thank you so much. 10 years in the NFL. We appreciate you taking some time and just to honestly share some of your wisdom today, because it's, you know, we got all this and it's fun. There's all this talk and everybody's reacting, but it's nice to get centered with you. I appreciate it, dude.
Get centered. Hey, I'm here for therapy. I do a Raiders podcast a couple days a week, and they just got blown out last night. So our episode was just Raiders fan therapy. I'm good at
dude. I see you were with the Raiders in 2017. I'm like, yeah. Look, I'm an Eagles guy, but I just love the Raiders. Al Davis, commitment to excellence, just one of the coolest organizations. Yeah, man. What the hell? Can I get your what the heck is going on there?
Yeah. I mean, again, we talk about, you know, a regime and their culture and their identity. They hired Pete Carroll. You know, they've got Tom Brady there as kind of an influence and a minority owner, and John Spytek. And I don't know what their identity is. You know, they're getting the worst of Geno. They thought they were getting a little bit of the piece of his peak. He hasn't played well, but they lost Brock Bowers after week 1, and their offense hasn't been the same. Their defense is lacking some talent, so they've got a lot of work to do in the draft and free agency. I think they have a cap space. I think they're top 5 in cap space coming into this offseason. They have a lot of work to do. I didn't think it would look as bad as it did yesterday. I think it was a combination of just a really rough game, and then Kansas City's hitting their stride. So, you know, not to say the Raiders are going to go on some run, but they're not as bad as they were yesterday. But it's been a struggle this season. They drafted Genty. People can argue at number 6 overall Is that the route they should have gone? If this is kind of a rebuild, you go with the running back. I don't know. He's a talented guy, and they love him, and I love him. And they got to continue to try to get him involved because he's a stud. He's a good running back. He can do a lot of stuff for you, but they have so many holes in that roster week to week. Just the execution's not there. But ultimately, even if you're struggling, I don't know what their identity is. When Pete was in Seattle, they had the Legion of Boom. They played tough defense. They played cover one. They got in your face. They made you pay when they were playing at home. And then, Russ and Marshawn Lynch and some of these kind of smaller receivers made timely plays. And so right now, I don't know what Pete and their staff, what their identity is. And so I'm hoping that emerges here sooner than later.
All right, where can people find you?
I'm on all the socials at mnewhouse73. I do Raiders podcast twice a week called Just Win Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and all of the podcasts where they're available. And then I do TCU home radio. If you're in the DFW area, we're on 92.5 The Wolf. And then if not, you can stream us on the Varsity app. And then I also do TuneIn Radio every other weekend with TJ Reeves. You can find us on TuneIn Radio doing Big 12 preview on Saturday morning. So I'm trying to be as wide and as broad as I can and talking ball, which is I love to do. So it's been fun so far.
You're very good at it, dude. I'd love to have you back on sometime. Thank you so much, Marshall. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime, Pete. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Wow, there he goes. That was awesome. I'd heard awesome things about him. Marshall and I were actually supposed to do that Big 12 show, the one I do now inside the 12. Not that it matters now, but he was the first guy that they wanted, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. He's a true talent on and off the field, and you can tell he's a really cool guy. All right, we're going to step aside, take a quick break. We will be back. The Pete Souza Show. We'll continue. Scotty's going to finish his thought, and then one or more. I went to that F1 race this weekend. I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get out of here. But Slovacics, thank you so much. We'll be right back.